I'm very grateful to my friend Mujib Qazi Saab. He is he's a chairman of North Texas Islamic Council and yes, yes, Imam Council, and he actually organized all those visits, and without him it would not have been possible. May Allah give him ajr. And I'm very grateful to brother Muhammad Isa Javed. He took me around the whole facility. So on one side I was very happy, I was delighted to see that. On the other side, deep in my heart, I was very much sad, because I come from a country which is supposed to be a very important Muslim country. But masjid at the most of the masajid there, they are just part-time praying places. And most of the time after the prayer we lock it. And not only we lock that facility, we lock our iman inside as well. And don't carry this iman to our shops, to our businesses, to our hospitals, to our homes even. So unfortunately, this is the situation. But when we come here in so-called a kafir country, and we see the efforts brothers and sisters are putting here, this is really remarkable. And I have no reason to not to believe this, that if you grow your children here in the vicinity of this mosque, for example, or any other mosque, I can assure you your children are more safe here in this kafir country than in Muslim country. So that actually saddens me, and inside I feel a lot of pain about it. So may Allah reverse this situation, may Allah change this situation. Now the topic which I'm going to talk is the parenting. And there is a misconception about this topic, which means this is how to learn the techniques to make acha bacha banana, to make good children. This is not. Parenting is not something which we work on the children. Parenting is something we work on parents. Parenting means what are the skills that parents can become good parents, so that as a result of it, their children become a good children. And in this half an hour time, it will not be possible to do complete justice with it. But I have designed my talk in such a way that there must be some kind of a take-home messages which I can just give. And the messages should be such that we can implement it tonight. So I will try my best to do that. See, the most important time in an adult's life is when he has a baby. This is the most important time in a life of an adult, mother and father, starting from day 0 to year 5. And a parent has to be at its best during these 5 years period. Because somehow, if parents are careless, if parents don't know the principles of learning what is cognitive psychology of a newborn and a child less than 5 years of age, then they just miss the train. And they even don't know that by the age of 5, they have done an irreparable loss in the whole thinking pattern of the children. Because human psychology is such, and the pattern of a development of a newborn to 5 years of age approximately is such, that those of us who are doctors here, they know that we can check the electrical activity in our brain with EEG, electroencephalogram. If we do an electroencephalogram of a newborn or someone of 1 or 2 years of age, that pattern is totally different from an adult pattern. The pattern which a child has is of a hypnotic pattern. In other words, when he comes in this world, he is just like a brand new computer, but without any software. And from day 0 to approximately 5 years of age, he is in a recording mode. And whatever is happening around him or her, he is continuously recording it. And this repetition of those things which are happening around him or her results in development of a pattern which is just like a foundation of a building. Now, after that age, how tall that building will be, how decorative that building will be, how beautiful that building will be, that will be just an incremental change on it, but the basic foundation remains the same. And if that vital period of the time is carelessly being spent and the principles of parenting are not followed properly, then sometime irreparable change occurs. And a brain becomes, which is called the habit brain. And most of us, all adults, we live our life 95% of the time according to our habit brain. And there is a very small window of conscious brain, which is just 5%, where there is a possibility that adults can change. Otherwise, for almost all adults, we can say, and I can talk about that 5% window later on, but for all adults, almost always we can generalize that habits go with head. And they have the habits and they will stay. Now, what are those vital things during 5 years? Number one, children don't do what we ask them to do. They do what we do. There is no method, there is no neurological connections in the brain in which a child can perceive something which is ethical or unethical, moral or immoral, guna, sawab, jannat, dozakh, khair, shar. Till the age of 5, approximately. Obviously, it is not that on the 31st of the January it will be different and the next day it will be different. There is a gray area according to child's own capacity, but roughly up to 5 years of age, a child does not do a thing, does not make a habit based on these yardsticks. Ethics, morality, good, bad. The child has only one criteria, and that is lovable and non-lovable. And the conscious parenting means when parents know that this is ethical, when parents know that this is right, when patient knows this is haq, they create it as a lovable experience around the child. And child will learn it. No matter you want to teach them namaz, no matter you want to teach them basketball, you want to teach them how to clean the, plate saaf karna unko sikhana chahte hain, you want to teach them anything or the academic education. If you teach them as a non-lovable activity, they will not learn it. Or even if they will learn it, it will not become part of their neurons. It will go into their memory only. But if you create anything as a lovable experience, then they will not only learn it, it will become their conscious pattern. And we need not to continuously remind them, and they will keep on doing it. I can give you an example of namaz. One way to teach namaz, all of us wants that our children should be very regular in prayers and namaz. One way to teach that is that we all the time tell them that you have to recite namaz, you have to pray. These are the benefits, these are the virtues, these are the, this can happen to you if you don't pray 5 times for the namaz. This is one way of doing it. The other way of doing is that don't say anything to the child, but a child of 2 months of age, he just observes that a sound comes and suddenly something happens in a room. Baba, uncle, grandpa, they get up and they go to the washrooms. And when they come up, their hands are wet. And previously, they were sitting without a cap and they try to find their caps and they just leave the home. And something happens with mama as well and the elder sister as well. She also just, before that, her head was not covered. She suddenly takes something to cover her head. And then she just, if TV is on, they turn off the TV. And then they also go to the washroom. And after that, they come and they spread a piece of cloth. And they just hold their hands there and become silent. This a child is just watching 5 times a day at the age of 1 month. And you can never imagine that one day it happened with me for my granddaughter. I have a photograph in my mobile where my daughter-in-law took a picture. I couldn't see it because I was praying in the home, and suddenly my granddaughter, she was 1 year and few months old. We never asked him to pray. She was just standing behind. By the way, it was a scorching summer season in Bahawalpur, and she was wearing a knicker, short knicker, right? And she did not realize her legs are all not covered, but she tried to cover her head with a piece of a shirt because she saw her mother doing it, and she was just sitting. I have that photograph. Now, although we didn't say him, so this is true for any action. If you create it as a lovable experience, a child will adopt it without being asked to do it. Mothers have a complaint that their children, they are not very studious. They don't spend time with the books. There is one way is to always scolding them, always just reminding them, putting an alarm and asking them to just, why don't you study? What is your scores? Why you not have A+? Another way is that when a child opens his eyes, he finds that the most prominent place in the living room has a cupboard of books. Mama also has got a shelf of books along her sitting table. Dada Abbu also, when he opens up, he has a book, but somehow he kisses the book before he opens it up. And everyone is reading. Now this child requires only one advice as far as studying is concerned, and that advice would be, for God's sake, now stop. Just sleep. Just leave the books. That is the only advice you have to give to that child. Because now it is a lovable experience. I remember those of you who were schooled in Pakistan, that there is a Adi Chutti, there is a recess. And school room is air conditioned or have got fans and it is comfortable. And the playground is muddy. There is dust going on. But when there is, bell rings, students just run in the ground and they just start playing with the mud. Although it's a very painful, it is very disturbing. And sitting in a room is very comfortable. But that is a lovable experience. And this is not a lovable experience. So in summary, the basic principle for 5 years is that whatever we consider is correct, create it as a lovable experience, as a contextual experience, and the child will just record it. Because when you have a child in your home, it is as if you are being monitored by closed circuit television cameras. And these cameras don't only monitor when you stand up, when you sit, what you eat, what time you sleep. These cameras are so sensitive that they can even record what is going on in your heart. Whatever good feeling or bad feeling you have, it is being subconsciously transferred into your children's mind. So if, for example, the relationship between mama and baba is not good, and somehow a child hears loud voices coming from mama papa's room, now this may be enough to create a pattern in his neuronal system which may affect throughout his life. If, for example, somehow a child perceives that father is involved in some kind of immoral activities, and that is only 3 years old child, we as a parents and adults can't imagine the level of impact which is there on that child's mind. If father is very harsh, whenever he comes, he's very angry, he's very shouting, always shouts on everybody. Now, if a child is attached to the father, for him this will be the normal pattern. And he will be the person, when he'll go to school, he will bully the younger students. When he'll get married, he will be having bad relationship. When he will be a boss, he will be very harsh with his subordinates. And if that child in which there is a problem with the parents is more attached to the mother, he will have a victim psychology. And all the time he will be suffering. All the time he will be complaining. All the time he will be submissive. All the time he will be on the side where he will be feeling the pressure of the society. Right? So this is the message number 1. Please remember, our children don't do what we ask them to do. They do what we do. And our doing does not mean just talking. Our doing means how we behave, how we think. So now you can ramify it. And the simple way to implement in our life, if you want to implement it today, tonight if you want to do it, I will just request you to go home and take a piece of paper and write down all those qualities you want to see in your child. You want him to be honest, you want to be hardworking, you want him to be studious, you want to be religious, you want to be regular in prayers, you want him to be healthy, you want him to go to gym, you want him or her to take a good food, healthy food, and then make a scale of 10 and just mark what mark you will give to you out of those 10. If you want your child to be hardworking, just give a score to yourself out of 10, how much is your score? And just work on that sheet. It is such a beautiful knowledge, this technique of parenting, that you work on yourself, but the results are seen in your children. It is such a beautiful science, right? So whatever you want to make your children, just start working on yourself and you will see the results. This is number 1 for, take-home message for less than 5 years of age. The second thing is that, by the way, I would like to just mention Javed. Javed, can you identify please, Javed? Javed is my classmate from class 6 to FSC. And he was Pakistan Air Force and now he's here. And Hamid, can you please? Hamid is, he was a best graduate of our college. We were in medical school. Both of them live in Dallas. So he's, mashallah, he was our best graduate, and I'm very grateful to both of them that they just came here. So what I was telling you was, the second important thing is that when we have stress, there is a sudden chemical changes in our body. For example, I give this example very frequently, that suddenly I saw a cobra coming out underneath this table. And suddenly when it just pans and it just shows its face to me, immediately what will happen, that epinephrine and norepinephrine will produce in my blood, which will result in my pupil being dilated, and blood will shift from many vital organs and it will go to my muscles, because I go into a fight and flight mode. Similarly, glucose in my liver will be metabolized, it will just break down, and there will be sufficient amount of glucose, because if we want to run, we can run. Now, when shifting of blood occurs, it is at the cost of blood supply to other organs. It is shifted from kidneys, no problem, for time being kidney can handle it, from the liver can handle it. But when continuously a snake is just in front of, imagine for 5 years a snake is just in front of me, what will happen to the chemical environment inside? In a child, it has been proved scientifically that blood supply to the brain is also shifted towards muscles in a flight and fight mode. And not only, there can be physical problems in a child which is under stress, there can be actual problems resulting in deficiency in his mental growth. This may not be anatomical deficiency, but this may be deficiency in development of his ability to solve problems. Problem solving skills are decreased. Critical thinking is decreased. His ability to come up with the out-of-box solutions is decreased. Analytic ability is decreased. So second take-home message is that the first message was, sorry, I'm behaving like a school teacher, because I told you that I'll just tell you some of the skills which you can apply today, to your children. Number one, please remember, just telling them all the time to do this and not to do this doesn't work. The only thing that works is a role modeling. What you do, they will do. Number one. Second, I said that children below the age of 5 does not have any mechanism to handle stress. And if they are continuously kept in stress, their development goes down. And a time comes when stress level is so much that they cannot handle it, so they have another safety mechanism to handle it, and that safety mechanism is development of another center in their head. I don't want to make it technically very complicated. All of us got a center for smell, olfactory center. All of us has an optic center, which actually through which we see. We have a speech center. We have got centers in our brain. These centers are made by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is one center, a child is not born with that center. But when stress is, psychological studies have shown that one of the reason of development, I'll just tell you, reveal the name of that center, is when a child at the age less than 5 is put into unnecessary stress. All the time he is worried that if my scores will not be up to mark, then I'm in trouble. All the time mama is worried that why in front of the auntie you are doing like this? Why you are not sitting like this? Why your room is not clean? Why when I go your bathroom is... I'm not saying that we should not train our children in doing that. But if we put them into stress, and that stress is now beyond the level, so body, you have got a short circuiting, fuse. If, for example, something wrong happens in the wiring, suddenly that fuse will go away, so that it will save the whole system. So in order to save a child develops a center. And name of that center is center of lie. When a data comes to me, you ask me, what did you eat in your breakfast? It will go to my memory, I took this and I will answer you. But he will develop a center, input data and output data will directly not come out. It will pass through that center, which is a lie center. And he will answer according to his own convenience. And psychology has shown us, cognitive psychology, especially in a childhood, development psychology, that a child becomes a liar. There can be many more reasons, but one of the reasons is when the stress at the age less than 5 is more than his capacity to handle the stress. Then child has only one choice. मैंने तो किया ही नहीं. No, I have not done it. And he starts developing a center and he becomes a liar. And you can imagine if someone tells a lie, what you can talk about his character. Then this is actually mother of all problems. And the character just spoils. So the second thing is that please remember, below the age of 5, a child does not have the ability to handle this stress. So, and most of the time in educated families, the stress is why your academic scores are not very good. I'm not at all saying that you should not discipline your child. I'm not saying that if he does something wrong, he is throwing tantrums, he is not, behaving well, so you should just say that, no, we heard that there should be no stress. I'm not saying that. But there are techniques of making him disciplined. And that is to negotiate with him. The time is very short, so I just skip that portion, but I'm not saying that let him become totally out of discipline. But at least I can tell you with full responsibility that a child does not have a center, does not have got ability to handle the stress to a beyond a level. This is second thing. The third thing is that before the age of 5, a child should be able to do what he can do. He should be allowed to do it himself. Over pampering, over facilitating, and doing the things for him or her which he can do himself is very, very dangerous. This is 3. Number 4, keeping him close to the nature. Keeping him away from artificial environment is very, very important. And out of those environments, one of them is the screen. And now there is a sufficient evidence, and recently Australian government has banned it in the schools. England has already done it. And in all over the world now, sufficient data is available that before the age of 5, exposing a child to a screen is very dangerous. It is very dangerous. Time is very short. We can talk hours and hours on the effects of this, right? But I can just give you one example. This will actually, we think it's a social media. This is a very potent tool to make someone antisocial, although we call it a social media, right? And for a child, this will not be perceived as something wrong, rather it will be perceived as a normal pattern. And the data which will be coming unguarded, uncensored data, this is going to shape the mind of a child which is not being controlled by the parents. So please take my words. If you like, we can talk a lot about it, but please remember, this is very important, that as much as possible, a child should be kept away from screen. If your child does not even watch screen for the age of 5, he is not going to miss anything. However, if there is an academic requirement, some of the courses are there, then it is just like, then this is just like, so thank you. Then this is just like that you have got a knife in your home. Everyone has a knife in your kitchen, right? So having a knife is very dangerous. Okay, I can hold it maybe. Having a knife is very dangerous because someone can poke it in someone's tummy. But still you have a knife in your home because you know that a knife will be utilized only by those which know how to cut the vegetable, which know how to peel an apple, right? So if your child knows and is sufficiently trained that this instrument is for communication and this instrumentation is for information, perfectly fine. But till your child does not understand that this instrument is not for entertainment, this should not be allowed to the children, right? So again, I'm very sorry that I'm not capable enough to squeeze, what's supposed to be in 1 hour work, whole day workshop. But that is all I can tell you about parenting of a child which is less than 5 years of age. 3 principles I've shared with you. Number 1, it should be, child doesn't listen or doesn't do what you ask him or her to do. A child does what you do. Number 1. Second, I said, stress cannot be managed by a child. Number 3, whatever we want to teach a child has to be a contextual experience, right? Once a child crosses the age 5, then suddenly the basic foundation of his mental framework is established. And now the parenting has to be entirely different. And that change in the parenting is that from this time onward, we have to develop that yardstick of measuring a child's ability into ethical, non-ethical, guna, sawab, sahi and ghalat. And the technique of doing it, now we have to put that child into a discipline. And if he does not follow the discipline, then still there is no punishment, there is consequences. For example, there is a discipline in your house that food will be served at 8 o'clock. And your child says, maine nahi khana. No problem, don't eat. Now make sure that he doesn't get a food till 8 p.m. I am a doctor, I can tell you with certainty, nothing will happen to your child if he will not eat for 12 hours. Now make sure that he has this, he bears the consequences. Again, it is not a punishment, it's a consequences. So please remember that the principles are entirely different when a child is grown up. And one of them is always put him into a discipline. And this discipline has to be role modeled by the parents. If the discipline is that you can have only 1 hour use of this mobile, then Baba also has to follow this discipline and he has to be used only for 1 hour. And if there are consequences of using it, violating the rule, the father has to bear the consequences as well. So this is for the grown-up children between 17 to 13. This is one principle. The other principle is, at this age, never refuse any answer to the, never, keep any answer, any question of the child as unanswered. Let him ask any question. And if you don't have any answer, I just tell you one technique in my workshops. Have a whiteboard in your home and he asks a question from you. You don't have an answer, just write on the board. And at the dinner time, say, this is the question asked by the younger brother. Anyone has the answer? If there is no answer, so whosoever will find the answer first, please let us know. So no matter how nasty an question is, no matter how bad a question is, but no question is bad question. So please remember, at this age group, number one principle I said was develop a discipline in a house and everyone has to follow that discipline. And the second principle is, in this age, whatever child asks, we have to offer some kind of an answer. 2, and the third thing is, a very important ability has to be developed in a child at this age, between 7 and 13, and that ability is the ability to accept no. And this is developed by a technique, whenever a child asks for something, this is what. From where you get it is how. Don't, for example, he asks a toy. So what he wants? A toy. From where you get it? From this shop. But don't buy him a toy unless and until he doesn't answer the third question. And that is why. And that why should be determined whether his desire will be fulfilled or it will not be fulfilled. I want a new pair of shoes. Okay, this is what. From where you find it? That shop. Why? Because my friend has the same type of shoes. This is not a valid why. I want at least 4 pair of shoes. No, this is not a valid why. I am going to start my gym and my previous shoes are actually not good enough for that activity. This is a good why. If you have a lot of money and the why is not appropriate, please don't buy him the shoes. If his why is appropriate and you don't have money, please borrow the money and buy him the shoes. So reason for fulfilling the desires of children just because you have got a financial ability is not the reason. The why has to be very strong. And this thing has to be inculcated in a child's mind between the age of 7 to 13. There are many other do's and don'ts in this age as well. One of them is that you make a list of the people you want your child to meet. For example, living here, you would like him to meet to Dr. Yasir Qadi. For example, in Pakistan, you want to meet him to Amjad Saqib Saab. You want to meet him, any big person there. You make a list of the places where you have to take your child. You have to make a list of the topics that has to be discussed with him compulsorily. For example, death. For example, qabr. For example, Allah. For example, risalat. For example, homosexuality. For example, LGBT. For example, global warming. For example, relationship with the elder brothers and sisters. Now so this is the do's of this age group. There are so many I have just told you. But this is being recorded as well. I mean, if someone interested can, replay it. But these are the thing which is required. And then the instruments. Make a list at what age he should be able to use screwdriver. At what age you allow him to ride a motorbike. At what age you allow him to use computer. So these are don'ts and do's of this age group. There are many, but these are few take-home messages. After the age of 13, actually, a big transformation takes place. Now your child is no more a child. He is an adult. If we have done everything right according to the principles I shared with you and many more, by this time, your child will have a relation with you, which will be a relation of mentor and mentee. He will be independent or she will be independent. And it will be a great news if your child is independent. But he will treat you as a mentor and he will ask from you, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want your opinion, please give me your opinion. What do you think are the pros, what are the cons of this thing? And this type of relation he will have. And if we have not done it according to the principles which I have told you, most likely, by this time, there will be a distance between parents and a child. And there is a very important litmus paper test for that. If your child wants to sit with you, you have done a good parenting and you have maintained that relationship. If your child says, Baba, I'm going to buy a few things for me, please come with me. Baba, I'm just doing a homework, but you please stay with me. Is it possible if I can, have your 1 hour and we can just talk? If your son or daughter is longing to be with you, you have done a good parenting. But if he is trying to just skip and he is happy when Baba has gone to another state for 2 days and is very happy, that means we have done something seriously wrong. And something in the subconscious of the child, parents have not remained respectful. And if this happens by the age of 13, instead of having a relationship of mentor or mentee, he had to find another Baba or Mama in order to fill that vacuum and gap. And there are studies. One of the studies has been done in India, and another study somewhere else, many studies elsewhere as well, that if a male child doesn't have that vacuum because of unnecessary stress in his life before the age of 13, there is always a boy elder to him in his life, which is now the replacement of Baba. Baba slapped on his face when he first knew that he smoked. But this boy is very good. Not only he didn't harm him, rather he brought the cigarettes for him as well. So who will be more precious? Which relationship is more useful? So that Baba will be responsible. And those children which are involved in drugs, those are involved in unethical activities, those who have got those unacceptable behaviors are usually those which at the time where they first experienced that bad thing, they did not have a backup cover of their parents with whom they can share, because they had a fear that they will be dealt very strictly. And a study from India is very, very painful. It shows that in a girl, because see, the circumstances in Pakistan, India are similar. The social circumstances and setup is almost similar. So we can actually generalize it into Pakistani society as well. I don't know much about the Western society, but according to that Indian study, if a girl has not a good relationship with her parents, and you give her a mobile as well, by the age of 9 to 10, an elderly gentleman has already entered in her life. Just try to visualize our daughter, age 12, 18, 12. That study shows that if our relationship with her is not strong, and strong relation has only one parameter. If your child does something wrong, does he or she has a courage to share it with the parents? And that is the answer to the question of peer pressure. Wherever I went, people asked me peer pressure. We do everything right in this society, but when they go into the outer society. So to my answer always is that if your child has a strong peer pressure and he commits something, but same day he shares it with Mama or Baba, you are doing a great parenting. And that is the maximum you can do. Because once you know it, and your child knows that my Baba and Mama will not be judgmental, they won't like this act, but they will not dislike me. Then they are safe, because now you can intervene. But see, I told you the result of that study, which shows that girls, if they have got that strained relationship, an elderly man has already come in their life. And you can imagine how serious that can be. The psychology of male, at least in that Indian Pakistan culture, psychology of an adult male most of the time is very ugly. Sorry. I wanted to use a more strong word, but I think ugly is the minimum which I can just share with you. So that's all I have to say. This is just an outline of the principles. But I can just emphasize on this point that please, if you are potential parents, that you are married and you are not yet parents, please put it in your priority list that you have to learn that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bless you with a child, how you're going to bring them. And if you are already parents, sometimes they ask, in this society, a male is working, female is also working, mother has doing 2 jobs, Baba is doing 2 jobs. So how to implement all those? My answer is very, very radical in that case. You don't grow a tree if you can't water it. If career is your priority, then please don't have children. Just focus your priority. And when you have sufficient, time, only then you just have children. Because this will be a very unfair for that human being, which we bring, which comes through us. And he does not get that proper nurturing environment which he or she deserves. And since it is not being done, this is why the whole world is like this. It is not, piece of Jannat, this word. Because it's filled up with people who are egoistic people. People who are, they have got their own vested interest and they are not, lead their life according to some kind of a character. So now I'll take just 3 minutes before I stop, and then there will be question answer. I know I have not done justice with this topic, and I could say more, but because of time, I want to tell you a story. And this story, real story. And this story is in a response to a question that when we should start grooming and training our child. In response to that, I'm telling you a story. There was a small city in Iraq. Name of the city was Tikrit. Anyone from Iraq? Anyone from Iraq, from brothers? So there is a city, Tikrit. Khalifa of that city was Usman. And the governor of that city was Najmuddin Ayyub. Now they were friends as well. He was his boss, but they were friends as well. So Usman was not deciding about his marriage. And Khalifa would always say him, why don't you're getting older. Why you're not getting married? He always used to say, I don't find any girl which comes to my standard. And he asked, what is your standard? He said, my standard is I want a girl which should hold my hand and take me to Jannah. And we have a son, and we teach him and train him and made him a very, very strong, Urdu ka lafaz tha Shah Sawar. We want to make him Shah Sawar. And then we want him to bring us back the Qibla Awwal, Baitul Maqdis. He said, now from where you will find this type of girl? After a few days, they were sitting in the company of a sheikh, who was an elderly person, and that sheikh had a sitting place where gentlemen would also come and ladies would also come, and with a partition, the ladies are also sitting. So a lady was talking, and both of them were sitting there, Khalifa and that sheikh told that girl that I recommended a rishta for you, a marriage partner for you, but you refused. So that girl said, and they were listening, because he was not of my standard. Nika, what was your standard, my daughter? Said, my standard is, I want to marry someone who will hold my hand and take me to the Jannah. I'm having goosebumps, after listening to that. And they were just listening, and they said, what's she saying? And she continued, and she said, then Allah gave us a son. And we train them and groom them so that he becomes very strong. And then he should just bring out of that a shameful situation, and he brings back Qibla Awwal for us. And suddenly that Sheikh, Najmuddin Ayyub said, I want to marry this girl. So Sheikh, let that lady go, and he said, she is the poorest lady in this whole takreet. His father is most poor. It's like, no matter whether she is poor or rich, I want to marry. And they married to each other. They had a son. And name of that son was Salahuddin Ayyubi. So my dear brothers and sisters, what vision we have for our children, even when they are not born, that is transferred in their character. We know in our Pakistan, when a father and mother says, I have to make all my 4 children as doctor, they make them doctor. And they work hard very honestly. I've seen so many families, they said, we want each one of my child as a doctor, so they become doctor. It's very competitive back home, here too as well. So, but when we don't have a vision to make our children as a characterful people, when we don't have a vision that they should be one who should be real Abdullah and real Ummati of Hazrat Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, then of course it will not be transferred, right? So these are 2 pennies I want to just deposit and put in this very vast knowledge of parenting. Thank you very much for your patient listening. If you have any questions, and I have got a